So we have made it to the end of 2024, and this time it's time to take a look at the 10 worst movies of 2024. So let's get started. First up, we have Kraven the Hunter, and it is a movie that's just ended the Sony Spider-Verse. And Aaron Taylor Johnson looked like he could be very, very dangerous and scary, but it's Sony, and they just want actors to join their universe, thinking they're gonna join the Marvel Universe and just be a cash grab. But at least this universe is over. It just ended on a poor story, a little bit of lagging with the action sequences, special effects. Yeah, it's just Sony for crying out loud. And this Sony Spider-Verse has thankfully ended, and there's nothing more to say. Moving on. Rebel Moon Part 2. Just as bad as the first. Moving on. Next up we have The Crow. And to be honest, I did not know The Crow was a remake from 30 years ago. But, I mean, honestly though, like, it's one you should have just not remade. Now, Bill Skarsgård is... I know he's a good actor, but it's an awful goth remake thriller with bad storyline, too busy trying to be such a cult classic, bad motivations, and just underwhelmingly bad. Just one you should not remake, and one you should have just left alone, and that's what they did. Next up, we have Megalopolis, a movie that was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and I was a little bit excited about it because I liked his movies like The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, and The Outsiders. And you have Adam Driver in the lead alongside a big cast including Aubrey Plaza, Shia LaBeouf, Lawrence Fishburne, so many others, but Francis Ford Coppola's ideas did not work. The visuals looked artificial intelligent. And I mean, Coppola tried his best for a passionate project that was his. However, it did not work. Next up, we have Unfrosted. Now, this was a movie that Jerry Seinfeld directed, which we all know Jerry Seinfeld. He's a comedian, and also I like this show Seinfeld. I just binge watched it this summer, and he's been talking about making a Pop-Tart joke for years, and we get it, and it's just dumb, silly. And I was like, is this story even real? Is this even a real story? Or did they just made this up? And I couldn't tell, like, basically on this story, like, what they were going for. And, like, the story about when they made Pop-Tart just looks like it was just a made-up story. It's just, yeah, it just looks like it was just a made-up joke, made-up ode to Pop-Tarts, and was completely too much frosted. Next up, we have Harold and the Purple Crayon, based on children's books that was a live-action adaptation, not animated, like Zachary Levi playing Harold with the purple crayon coming into the real life. Like, that's so bad of an idea. Not a good idea. Should have done animated. Just listen to us, Hollywood. Next up, we have The Strangers Chapter 1. The Strangers Chapter 1. it just, I didn't know anything about it. Like, I didn't know, like, if this, about what they were doing here. It was just, like the originality, bad character development, and just weak performances. And, yeah. And should we even want more of this chapter after this? Probably not. Next up, we have Borderlands, based on a video game that was just adapted into a film. And they hired, like, Craig Mazin, who's the guy who's in charge of, like, who's, like, the showrunner for The Last of Us. And I honestly thought this was gonna do well. Found out some things were behind the scenes, like, having trouble with it. And so Craig Mazin decided to, like, abandon this project. And Eli Roth, the guy who directed Thanksgiving, came in, and you have Cate Blanchett, Jack Black, Kevin Hart, and even you have Jamie Lee Curtis. But it just feels like an SNL skit. And whatever would happen behind, and a total failure and misfire, whatever would happen behind the scenes with this movie, it is a cobbled together mess of nonsense. Though the cast looks good, and obviously you can have fun with, it just could not save this film. Next up, we have Joker Fully a Duke, and the original Joker was a huge hit with Joaquin Phoenix and director Todd Phillips. And then we get a sequel to it, and it's a musical, and a musical does not work for a Joker movie. Though Joaquin Phoenix is good as Joker in the movie, I just think the direction that Todd Phillips could have done with this movie, I did not like what he did with the story, and Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn just falls short for me. I did not like what they did. I did not like what Lady Gaga was as Harley Quinn, and like her character arc. And even I was like so disappointed about this movie, because the original was so good, and now is a huge disappointment. A big disappointment. An original film and musical was just making this a musical when the original wasn't. And like Lady Gaga was, I mean, alright, I guess, but this is probably my number one disappointing movie of this year. But at least this wasn't as bad as number one, Venom Web. Just like Kraven the Hunter, it's Sony's Spider-Verse. And one that cannot be saved. Just lacking of Spider-Man, embarrassing, and probably this might be the worst film of the genre. Even everyone that was involved with it has made fun of it ever since. Though Dakota Johnson kind of defended like the movies during the press tour, she just like, after that, when the movie was so bad, she also made embarrassing things about it. Even Sydney Sweeney made fun of the film on SNL during her monologue, saying, "You definitely did not see me in Madam Web." Yeah. It is laugh out loud bad, lacking of the story. Yeah. Even Dakota Johnson could not save this film. But, yeah. I mean, Sony, you need to give up the Spider-Man rights. Like, yeah, at least this franchise is over, so we won't have nothing for it. There's nothing else we need to say about. Yeah. But at least this is all over now. So this comes in at number 1. So, just an embarrassing franchise that we should not even have. What are some of the worst movies of 2024? Write your comments down below. And yeah. But hey, next on is the good movies of 2024.